Rainbow Six Siege changes a lot, so if you're a returning player that doesn't want to be lost in these important changes, you've come to the right place. In today's video, I'm going to be going over every important change made to the game from Operation North Star onward. So if you already know about some of these changes I'll be talking about, the video will be timestamped and you can go to which season you're not caught up on. The first changes we will be going over is from Operation North Star. The operation brought many impactful changes, most notably the ability to melee bulletproof glass. This goes for bulletproof cameras, mirror windows, maestro cameras, and OSA shields, which is something we'll get into later. Another change that came this season was of course the new operator. To be honest, she's pretty bad, but if you do want to know what she does, she's a healing operator. She heals by putting down 3 healing stations in the prep phase that minimally heal on a cooldown. She's a very underwhelming operator and the worst healer in the entire game, so I won't spend much more time talking about her in this video. Other more impactful changes that came this season include the favela map rework. They also made Melusi's not bulletproof once activated, and they also fixed the bug that allowed smokes to go through walls and floors if you were playing the operator smoke. I don't know about you, but I didn't even realize that was a bug and I thought it was a feature. A much more impactful change that I want to highlight in particular that came with this season was the removal of bullet holes. For any of my returning players, we both know how frustrating and game-breaking that was, so now that it's gone, the comfortability of the attack has gone significantly up. They also removed dead bodies after a few seconds when they die as well, which is another great change. If you thought any of that was impactful though, then you will be thoroughly surprised by our next season, Crystal Guard. Crystal Guard brought multiple map changes, including changes to Bank, changes to Coastline, and changes to Clubhouse. I wouldn't call these full-on reworks, but they removed some rooms and metal bars that caused frustrations between both the attack and the defense. If you want to know about the new operator that came out this season, it is Osa. Osa brings a bulletproof deployable shield that she can put in front of her face. Like I said earlier, this shield will be non-transparent if meleeed, but still act as a shield. There is also a red canister on the back if you want to destroy it just like Mira's gadget, and they also get countered by explosives. This gadget is definitely powerful and can be used on almost every bomb site outside of exterior walls very effectively. One other thing that you can do with Osa Shield is put your teammates' gadgets on it. Zero cameras can pierce through the shield, and Fuse can put a cluster charge on it as well. Speaking of Fuse, I do want to quickly mention that he is now able to fuse through reinforcements as of this season. This takes longer and makes a different sound cue, but it's still a great quality of life change that they added in Operation Crystal Guard. This season brought nothing but good changes that people loved overall, which cannot be said for the next season, High Caliber. High Caliber brought the least amount of changes in a season that I'll be talking about on this list, the first of which being the Outback rework. This rework was not only lackluster, but also didn't change the core fundamentals of why this map was bad in the first place. Because of this, most people, myself included, still think this is one of, if not the worst map in Rainbow Six Siege, at least in the ranked pool. The new operator Thorn also didn't bring anything new to the table. She's essentially just Capcan, but worse, with her bringing 3 proximity-based explosion traps. These are throwable and make a lot of noise when activated, and even then it take a lot of time to activate, which is why she's a bad operator. The only other notable change that they made with this season was the ability to pick which team color you have. For example, if your team color is set to red, the match header and leaderboard will all be red, with the enemy team having their color either be blue or orange depending on what you set it to. This also goes for the color of gadgets and secondary gadgets as well. With that absolute disappointment of a season out of the way, let's talk about something for a second. You're here to learn, and to help you learn, not only am I making you this video, but having a healthy diet as well helps immensely. Which is why the sponsor of today's video is Control. Control is a protein supplement or meal replacement company specifically for gamers. Control has all kinds of crazy products, whether it be the protein powder they have, or their protein cookies, specifically their Rainbow Six Siege Black Ice cookie. Buying one of these cookies on their websites come with a little QR code on the back of them that enter you a chance to win some actual in-game Siege prizes. Not only are they pretty relatively cheap for protein products, but if you use code Alka, you can get 10% off of anything in the Control shop. You're also able to bundle up with other items to get another extra 20% off, meaning you can get up to 30% off of anything you buy using code Alka. Another cool thing too is they just shipped to me actual air fresheners that they're making for cars now, so you can have cinnamon toast Control air fresheners in your car to make it smell pretty nice. For me, it just makes me really hungry, but at least it doesn't smell pretty bad, which is normally what most people's cars smell like if you don't have an air freshener or you at least don't clean your car. And the best thing about Control is they already are pretty cheap, so being able to get that discount while also being able to stay healthy is just a no-brainer. And with everything I've said about this sponsor, the best thing about their product is the fact that it actually taste really good. So I'm gonna put a link in the comments to their shop with my affiliate link, and if you use code Alka for 10% off, you can get whatever your heart desires from the Control shop. So I just want to thank Control again for sponsoring for today's video. Now, unlike the last season that brought little changes no one liked, this next season brought the complete opposite. Demon Veil was the season that Azami was introduced. Azami was, and still is, one of the most powerful defenders in the entire game if used correctly. Her ability allows you to throw a kunai at any surface it will stick to. Once stuck to a surface, this will deploy a circle of concrete that acts as a deployable shield. You can set these things up anywhere and create tight pixel angles onto any unsuspecting attacker, while also being able to create parkour spots in the process. One thing I do want to highlight about this operator is that a while down the line, they made Azami barriers not bulletproof. The higher caliber bullet that you shoot an Azami barricade with, the more damage it will do to the barricade, allowing at least some counter potential to this insane defensive operator. Speaking of operator changes, Goyo was also reworked this season. Goyo used to deploy a shield with a gas canister behind it that could be exploded, leaving a wake of fire beneath the destroyed shield. This was way too powerful, so this season they reworked him to place just his canister down without the shield. To compensate for the fact that this was obviously a nerf to Goyo, they gave him a fourth canister, and they increased the amount of time that his fire lasted. Goyo since has been still a great operator, and much more balanced ever since. They also decided to take a shot at nerfing Valkyrie, where now she can no longer throw cameras outside, and if you do, they will lose signal after 10 seconds. This isn't that impactful though, as 10 seconds is plenty of time to get that early runout kill that you're using the camera for anyways, so Valkyrie remains still a very powerful operator. But that's enough about operators, because the final notable change coming with this season actually happened in the middle of the season after its release, and that being the release of the map Emerald Plains. This map isn't terrible, and overall it's pretty fun to play, but I'm not going to pretend it's all that balanced for a competitive setting, but if you love Coastline, this is almost just like it. This season came out with a lot of good, healthy changes, as well as a great operator, which is not at all the case for our next operator coming into the next season, Operation Vector Glare. Operation Vector Glare came with a lot of notable changes, but the least notable of which was the new operator introduced, being Sens. Sens is a 3-speed operator that deploys a line of smoke on whatever surface you throw her gadget on. Because of how hard and dangerous it is to line up their gadget effectively, this operator is very hard to use. Sens also has way too many counters for their own good, making Sens a high-risk, low-reward type of operator. Because they're one of the worst operators in the game to this day, I won't waste much more time talking about them in this video. A much more notable change that came with this season, however, was the introduction of the shooting range. This, when it came out, only had lanes 1 and 2, with lane 3 coming a different season. This is great for anyone wanting to aim train inside of Siege instead of going to third-party apps, or just trying to warm up for the day or for your ranked session. Another thing they added was the new map Close Quarters, which was for the Team Deathmatch game mode. Aside from that, another thing they did this season that most people forget about was adding the ability for operators to have the choice between more than just 2 secondary guns. For example, instead of Gridlock only having the option of a Gon 6 and a Super Shorty, she now has the option of those 2 secondaries plus her old pistol that they took away. Ubisoft essentially wanted to just bring back all of the old secondaries back to operators that had their guns replaced by the Gon 6 or anything else that replaced them. This included, of course, Gridlock, as well as giving Adokabi back her C75, giving Kali a P225, giving Lion his P9 back, giving Glaz a Bearing 9, giving Clash her pistol back, and giving Tachanka a Bearing 9 as well. A lot of great secondaries were added to operators that needed them, and overall, this was a great quality of life change for a lot of operators. Now, if you thought that Sens on release was bad, the next season brought an operator that was arguably worse at the time. That season being Operation Brutal Swarm. Operation Brutal Swarm was a pretty dry season in terms of content. They introduced the operator Grim, whose gadget was a launcher that would fire a cluster of bees. These bees cover a 4.6 meter radius, and anyone who steps inside of them will have their location revealed as a live ping. You have the option to shoot the canister where it sticks or bounce it off of a surface one time. On release, this operator was pretty terrible, but since then they have tuned this operator up a lot, and he's now comfortably one of the best attackers around for more coordinated teams. This season brought the introduction of a new map, Stadium Bravo, which is just a combination of the map's coastline and border. This map was, and still is, pretty terrible, so no one really played it. It seems, after this season though, Ubisoft learned their lesson with adding subpar content to the game, with the introduction of a great defensive operator in the new season, that season being Operation Solar Raid. Operation Solar Raid brought the new operator, Solis. Solis at the time was extremely powerful. She could see any drones in the prep phase, making it impossible for attackers to coordinate their attacks early on. Solis also had impact for the roam as well, and more range and a more forgiving cooldown. She was also widely considered to be the best roamer in the game at the time, which made this season feel like a lot of fun. While the addition of the new operator was loved by fans of Siege immediately, that was not at all the case for the new map, which was Nighthaven Labs. Nighthaven Labs was seen as a terrible map by most people on its release. It was way too big and complicated, with the way of holding things being too unclear for most players. Reminds you of something, right? Anyways, because of this, the map wasn't seen as a good map until a few seasons ago when it was introduced into Pro League, so people were forced to play it for a while and learn it. Now, most people, including myself, like this map to this day. Another thing that I love is the next season I'll be talking about, which is Operation Commanding Force. Operation Commanding Force came with the attacker Brava. Brava's ability is a drone that allows you to hack enemy gadgets and turn them into your own. Now, instead of a Jaeger device catching your smoke grenade, it will catch the defender's nitro cell when they throw it. If Mozzie hacks a Brava drone, Mozzie can turn attacker claymores into defender claymores. Pretty simple. Another simple but impactful change that came with this season was not allowing reload canceling. If you cancel your reload before the animation is over, it will leave one bullet left in your gun in the chamber to shoot someone with. When that bullet is shot, it will force you to reload your gun unless you switch to your secondary gun. This was a great change because reload canceling was honestly towing the line of being an exploit. Speaking of exploits, it's no surprise that people cheat on console, especially in the higher levels of play. Because of this, in Operation Commanding Force, Ubisoft implemented something called Mousetrap. This will detect if you have a mouse and keyboard on console, and give you the input delay if you keep using it. This didn't really work for long, as Zim's software team quickly found a way around it, but it was at least a nice thought. Another change that came this season that was more than just a nice thought was the beginner challenges. This was just a way for beginners to learn the game and get some extra rewards along the way. But now that we finished that season, let's talk about the next upcoming season, which was Operation Dread Factor. Operation Dread Factor was actually a very good season and introduced a very powerful defender. This defender is Fenrir. At the time, this defender had 5 bulletproof throwable mines that, when activated, would blind anyone that walked in front of them. Fenrir could activate 3 of these at a time, making attacking a complete nightmare. He has since been nerfed to where his gadgets are no longer bulletproof and he only has 4 mines, 2 of which are activatable at a time, and even then, he's still a good operator nonetheless. Not only did they add a new operator, but they also added a new secondary gadget. With the introduction of Operation Dread Factor, Ubisoft added observation blockers. This gadget blocks any attacker-controlled observation tool from being able to see what's on the other side of the projector it creates. This gadget, however, does not affect actual operator vision, making the gadget great for the prep phase but almost useless after the fact. One other huge change that I need to mention was the rework to the map Consulate. This map was reworked and, at first, hated by a lot of players. Since then, the map is now seen in a better light and is even still in competitive play. Speaking of reworks, the next season we'll be talking about brought back a rework to Frost. That season being Operation Heavy Mettle. Operation Heavy Mettle brought some very good changes. For starters, it brought an extremely powerful attacker who is still dominant even to this day, which is Ram. Ram's gadget is a mini tank that destroys any bulletproof gadget in its path. It also destroys soft surfaces when activated, making her the best vertical play operator in the entire game even to this day. For her loadout, she has the R4C, or smokes and flashes, so she's extremely versatile and lethal as well. With the introduction of Ram, they also reworked the operator Frost, like I said earlier. Instead of having to get a teammate to revive you, you can now revive yourself. This comes with a huge disadvantage though. You can no longer sprint, and you leave huge trails of blood, making the game almost unplayable for you. The final season of Year 8 was Operation Deep Freeze, which is the most controversial season in this entire video. That is because not only did they add a game-breaking operator, but this is when cheaters absolutely ruined the later part of the ranked season. The operator that was released, however, was Turborao. This operator froze any operator or gadget in its radius, making things like thermites, aces, hibanas, Deimos drones, and many other things just flat out not work. This also slowed anyone in its radius and made the operator leave footprints behind. This operator didn't seem that powerful at first, but after people realized you could combine him with Cade, this operator made a lose-lose situation for the attackers. The attackers could either push the wall and deal with a Turborao and Decade when Maverick was banned, or they could just push the roam, which included Solis, or they could push Backsight, which included Azami and Fenrir. This made attacking almost impossible for that season. They also introduced the map Layer, which to this day remains highly controversial in terms of its viability as a competitive map. Toward the later part of the season, Jinxie started getting increasingly popular, which attracted a lot of cheat-making companies to start making cheats. This made playing ranked, even to this day, completely unplayable for high-level players. But the next season for cheaters was even worse. Introducing Operation Deadly Omen. Operation Deadly Omen was actually a great season, obviously aside from cheaters. This season just introduced Deimos, which to this day is a strong attacker. Deimos works by red pinging enemy defenders. You can ping the actual enemy or just their gadget. Once you've done this, the ability to track them with Deimos' ability is activated. This ability will track the player through any surface, almost like wall hacks. The only bad part about this is that you are the only one who is able to see this ping. But if you have a microphone, you can give callouts, and that's not even an issue either. It will also give the defender you are tracking pings on you, but they are less consistent and not continuous, unlike your ping. When the ability is active, you can only use his revolver, which is, to be fair, a great gun still. This season also brought the scope rework. There is no more 1.5 times or 2x scopes, and they gave an ACOG to every attacker AR, LMG, and SMG, yes, even Ash and Buck's AR. They reworked who had ACOGs on defense, but this was a successful attempt from Ubisoft to give attackers a bit of a rebalance with such a previously defender-sided meta. They also slowed down the ADS speed of every weapon and made this customizable depending on your attachments. Speaking of, Ubisoft also added a new gun grip called the horizontal grip. This grip made it to where you move faster, which is a nice touch to weapons that don't already have a lot of recoil. Another change that was pretty nice was the shield rework. Any shield operator, including Clash, has the ability to reload and throw gadgets from behind their shield. You also can't hit fire from behind your shield anymore, but you can vault through full health barricades and run with your shield in front of your face just like only Blitz could. When you melee people, you throw them like a nomad air jab, so they're still able to get up, but if it's a 1v1, you're going to win that gunfight most of the time if you're the shield player. LMGs after this season also have less recoil now, but they make it to where you move slower when you're holding them. This season, as you can tell, came out with a lot of new and good content. A stark contrast to the next season, Operation New Blood. This season didn't bring any new maps or operators, instead just 2 operator reworks for the operator Recruit. Recruit on attack is now called Striker, and on defense is Sentry. Only one person can play this operator at a time, and they bring the ability to bring 2 sets of secondary gadgets, which is semi-powerful and honestly situational at best. One positive note from the season change, though, was the much-needed nerfs to Solis and Fenrir. Fenrir's nerf, which is what we have today and what I talked about earlier, was a great nerf, and just what the operator needed. The Solis change, though, was honestly just too much, and you'll see later that Ubisoft went even further with nerfing Solis. They also decided to buff barbed wire, making it do 5 damage per second. Every second you're in the barbed wire, which is absolutely great. Another good change is the public release of the Siege Marketplace. This allows you to sell, buy, and trade skins for R6 credits. I absolutely love this change, and I'm on this more than the actual game sometimes because of cheaters, but that's it. That's literally all they added with the new season. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about the new season coming to Siege, which is Operation Twin Shells. Operation Twin Shells added one of the most unique gadgets we have ever seen in an operator to Rainbow Six Siege ever. This operator is off of the map entirely and controls 2 robots. You play as one robot who is able to switch its consciousness to the other robot whenever you need to. If your idle shell, the robot that you're not using, dies, you don't die, essentially giving you 2 lives if you switch consciousness before you die. If the active shell dies, which is the one you're currently controlling, you die too, and your other body just acts as a bulletproof camera, not giving you a second life. This is pretty good, but honestly, it's still too early for me to tell if the operator is going to be useful or not in the upcoming season. This new season also rolled out with reworks to 3 different operators, the first of which being Dokkaebi. Instead of starting the round with both calls, you still only have 2 calls, but it takes 45 seconds to charge up each one, meaning you start out with 0, but after a minute and a half, you have all 2. This is a step in the right direction, but still not enough nerfs for Dokkaebi in my opinion. The same can't be said for the operator Nook. Nook got reworked, and Nook's ability meter now does not deplete, making her ability essentially infinite. It will deplete, however, if you do any fast or loud actions, like sprinting, shooting, meleeing, or using a gadget. They also buffed the FMG9, so she is going to be a much more viable operator with the new upcoming season. Finally, the last rework is a rework to Solis. Most people think this is a nerf, but I actually don't think it is. Yes, you can't identify what you're seeing until you overclock her ability. That is true. But overclocking Solis' ability completely recharges her ability meter as well. They also decrease the amount of time it takes to recharge the ability as well as a slight increase to her range. You are also able to Z-ping with her gadget now, making it to where you don't have to overclock all that much, and the non-ability to identify what you're seeing on your scanner isn't really that big of a deal if you have a headset or common sense. If it's moving around, you obviously know it's a drone, so you don't need to use your overclock. If you can hear that it's an H charge, you don't need to ping it either, just call it out to your team. So honestly, for now, it's still too early to see if Solis is going to be bad or good yet, but I think she'll at least be better than most people realize, at least in competitive environments. But with that out of the way, that is it for today's video. My name's Alka, check out this next video, and I hope we'll see you there. Later.